You're listening to TLN Radio, a member of the Nation Network of Podcasts and delivered by DoorDash.
Welcome to episode 10. We made it to 10 episodes here on the Leafsnation Radio Podcast. Caroline, Nick, Scott, Kyle here with you. We got the crew. We're ready to go through an entire rundown of week 5 of the NHL. But first, how's everyone doing? Scott, we'll start with you.
I'm doing pretty good today.
Yeah.
You know, I've been busy all weekend with our good friend Nick here at the Hockey Hall of Fame event. So we've been getting some good content.
Fancy
out of that.
guys over here.
I know. What's it like to be you guys? Nick, what's up?
What it's like to be me is I'm tired. I don't even think I got out of bed until like 9:30 this morning, and I'm tired. I have an issue with being tired.
Listen, I'm one of those people who could sleep 16 hours in a day and still wake up and be like, I could have used another 2. So don't worry.
I mean, I got out of bed a half hour ago, so I'm not going to judge you there.
No judgment. I respect the hell out of that. There's nothing more important than sleep. It's actually very underrated. People think that, sleep's not important, but it is. It's vital. Kyle, what's good on your end?
I'm doing good. The weekend of sports was maybe a mix of emotions, to say the least. But yes, equally tired, equally busy, especially with practicum stuff for school this week, but doing good.
Awesome. Okay, good stuff. Nick, the hottest take of all time. You weren't on last week's episode to explain why you thought Connor McDavid's goal wasn't as nice. You said it was hard. It was difficult to do, but it wasn't as nice as everyone thinks. And again, to reiterate, this was Connor McDavid's goal, the tying goal against a crazy New York Rangers game. Also, he has now become the 6th fastest player to reach 600 points. So it's just perfect that you get to explain this on such a monumental moment for the best player in the world. Go ahead, Nick Barden. The floor is yours.
So, first of all, I saw one person put, I think it was a story, and it was about how this was, I think it was like one of the best goals. Maybe it was the best goal that Connor McDavid's ever scored, whatever. But it was something outlandish, and I was like, oh my God, why are we even talking about that right now? But my thing with the goal is that I told Scott yesterday, the goal is great. Like, I have no problem with it. It's an amazing goal. I thought everybody hyped it up a lot when the thing was, if I'm picturing it in my head right now, first of all, it was a bad change by New York. Second of all, 3 of the 5 New York players were just staring at him, and he was able to just walk right in. And people might be like, oh, well, he's so fast. He did it. I'm not going to say I could do that because that's not very nice, but a lot of NHLers could have cut that fast into the zone. And I thought that part wasn't anything special. And then one of the other players was there, and he was sort of behind McDavid. He couldn't really catch him. So I'll say the speed of McDavid there was a factor. And then he just basically went in and out on a player, got around him, and he dummied the goalie as well. I'll say that. But to me, it kind of felt like with his speed and the way he was just able to maybe just get past that one other player and then just be one-on-one. I didn't think it was as special as, I think Kyle said it on the last podcast, because I did listen to what you guys said about me. The Columbus goal. Right? When it was his first goal since he returned.
But still pretty good.
Well, no, I don't have any I love that goal. I just didn't think it was the best. I thought that a lot of people were hyping it up just because of the fact that it was Connor McDavid, especially with the Morgan Riley thing that he did a few years ago. That goal is great too, but we wouldn't be talking about it if, say, we wouldn't be talking about it as much as, say, David Pastrnak did that, or somebody else, in my opinion.
So Nick, you're like one of my favorites. I adore you, and I respect your opinion. So everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and we respect each other on this podcast. Okay, listeners. Okay, crazy Leafs fans. But I have to respectfully disagree, because I don't think any person in the NHL could have done what Connor McDavid did. And I sometimes think the one thing working against Connor McDavid is that everyone is like, oh, he skated so fast. That's normal for Connor. Meanwhile, no one else could do that. You know what I mean? It's like almost like he's reached this level of something that other players can't attain. And it's like, it's not as cool because Connor's just freakishly fast, or he has freakishly good hands at speed, or, you know, he's 5 steps ahead of everyone. I think that context of that game and watching it start to finish and seeing what Connor did, I literally, and I think the world of obviously Austin Matthews, I think Leon Draisaitl's, I don't know what this guy's eating in breakfast, what's in his cereal in the mornings, but this guy's on another level right now. I think that what Connor McDavid did, literally no one in the NHL could do. That being said, everyone, and I also think that what he did when he went one-on-one with Morgan Rielly was insane. I don't know. There's something different about Connor. And I think that his post-game celly, like his post-goal celly against the New York Rangers, said it all. Like he even was like, holy shit, I did that. And that's not a Connor McDavid thing to do. So again, I totally respect it. I think that everyone's entitled to their opinion, but for me, I think watching that game start to finish and seeing how it played out, I was like, that's got to be top 2 Connor McDavid goals.
Okay, then I have to ask this. I'm going to take the host's chair for a second.
Wow.
What's the best goal that's ever been scored in the NHL?
Is this a question for everyone or for me?
For everyone. If I can start if you guys want. Rick Nash?
I think it was the Coyotes one where he danced around both defenders and then scored.
That was a good one.
Let's see. I think for me, it's probably the Ovechkin one where he falls over and like.
Also against the Coyotes.
Yes, also against the Coyotes.
Ovis had a couple good ones. Okay, I need to think of, that's a tough question. Just put, you know,
I know.
I need to think about this one, but I will say from when I started watching, so I'm 91, I started watching when I was in and around 10 years old. I don't think I've been excited. Like the one thing I'll say is when Connor, I'm not saying what Connor's goal against the Rangers was my favorite goal of all time, but it like literally made me sweat. And I've never had that. The only time I've had like a physical reaction from a goal was in soccer. Cause I'd be like, soccer's my sport, right? So I'm like immediately into it. That's the only time that's ever happened. And that's how I knew I watched something really special. But I'm going to think about this answer. Ovi's a good one. Ovi's a good one to pick. Cause I think Ovi's going to catch up to Gretzky in terms of records. But I need to think about that one. Why? Where are you going with that, Nick?
No, I just wanted to know because mine was the Ovechkin one against Arizona. That was just, I mean, there's been a lot of good goals, but like that one, I don't think that's ever going to happen again. Like the way he was just on his back and he might not have not even meant to try and put it in the net, but the way he was just on his back and he had his stick and he just was able to do whatever he did with it to put it in an empty net. I mean, I've never seen anything like that one.
Oh yeah. I don't think the argument I'm making is that, you know, he scored the nicest goal of all time. I'm saying in like Connor McDavid, his career. And I mean, Ovechkin, we've seen Ovechkin do some crazy things. We've seen McKinnon, Pasternak, we've seen, you know, like Kucherov, we've seen some nasty goals from some of the best players in the league. For me, Connor's speed and how he just does what he wants with players and like discombobulates everyone on the ice. And then how he finished that goal against the New York Rangers, to me was just on another level. I freaked out. Cash, my dog was barking. Mike was in front of the TV. Twitter blew up. Ryan Whitney's like tweeting a storm on Twitter lately about the Oilers and jumping on the bandwagon. Like it's just something, maybe it's also because the Oilers are off to a really hot start that everyone's like on top of them right now too.
That's fair. I mean, I'd do the same if it was Austin Matthews when, especially like there's some goals in overtime that he's scored that I've just started yelling at the TV. Like he's done crazy shit and I'll just be sitting there and I'll be going, oh. So, I mean,
we need to clip that soundbite.
Every player does that though. Every player is like that though. Like,
yeah.
Like it's, but I mean like for me, being able to cover the Marlies, you start to like, you watch the things that these players do. And I know for myself, like when I was younger, I'd watch the NHL and I'd be like, yeah, that's so easy. Like I could go on the ice and skate with them and keep up with them. And then you like sit and watch what they actually do on a day-to-day basis. And you're like, no, that's not me. No, that's especially if you have a guy that's like 6'5", 6'6", 220 pounds coming at you like a train. No, that's not hard. I mean, that's not easy.
So for what it's worth, Patrick Nemeth, the defender that McDavid was going up against in that goal, is 6'4", 230 pounds. Just to put it out there. Just a little context. Oh, speaking of context, wasn't that the tying goal as well with like 3 minutes left?
It was literally the tying goal in the game that was so crazy.
It's getting up.
Did they win that game?
They did. Draisaitl scored in overtime.
Okay. Damn
it was just the perfect storm. That's what I'm saying.
Yep.
Context, if you consider the context of everything, it was so good. Like I wish I could relive that moment. I was just like this. I was like, what did we just see? It was, and I think, we can move on. We respect you.
Well,
you might be on an island on your own, but we respect you.
I probably am.
I will add one thing. If we are talking about goals that are, almost impossible to replicate, and this is some grade A segueing here, what do we think of David Kamp's goal on Saturday night? Try replicating that one.
I didn't see that goal live. And so like I saw people clowning about it. And so I still wasn't prepared when I first saw the replay of it for just how ridiculously David Kamp that goal was. But
unbelievable.
Gotta love it.
Leafy as shit. Okay, but hold on. Before we go on to the Leafs, let's quickly talk about Canada soccer because we got two soccer fans. Nick, Scott, are you soccer fans?
Yep.
Okay.
Man, you baby.
Wow. Of course. Of course.
Oh,
That's
Man City.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Really?
Not that passionate. I'm not that bothered.
So funny. Okay. Well, let's give a shout out to our Canadian men because they beat Costa Rica, which if you guys watched the game, I actually thought Costa Rica did a really good job defensively. I think Canada was the better team, obviously finished their chance, Jonathan David. But Costa Rica did a good job and wasn't as affected by the weather that I thought. I thought the pitch looked scary. Honest to God, yeah. I thought that they were running on like green concrete. But all that being said, 48,000+ fans in Edmonton.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was freaking awesome. The snow has started. So for Canada versus Mexico here, I think that the Mexicans, and I heard this morning on TSN that Mexico isn't even here yet. So I think that they're going to, that they're going to have a hard time adjusting. But I'm excited to see what this team does. And hopefully, I mean, the last time they qualified for a World Cup was 1986. So hopefully not only do we see, Canada qualify for the World Cup, but make some history because this is such a cool time for Canada soccer. The women won gold at the Olympics. The men qualify for the World Cup. It's about time soccer starts getting that respect it deserves in this country. So I'm really, really excited.
Yeah, it's awesome. And like even in 86, when they did qualify, they only qualified because one of the other CONCACAF teams pulled out. And so they were the next team up and got in there. So they haven't even qualified directly to the World Cup. And so it like Costa Rica is a team that has made back-to-back World Cups, both in 2014 and 2018. Like this is a team that has a lot of depth, has a lot of really strong players, and Canada dictated play at home and ended up getting the win. So it's really, really cool to see. It's another big test coming up against Mexico. And yeah, I can't wait for it. It's going to be really, really good.
I'll say playing soccer for a long time. I kind of shifted away from it because I played it when I was young and I played rep and I played it very seriously and it got too serious for me. So that's sort of why I shifted over to hockey a little bit, but it's nice. Like it's nice to see, especially when like you grow up and like my family's from England and you for me, like that's who I would cheer for in the World Cup. And now it's going to be a different story because if Canada's there, although they might not, I shouldn't say it, but like they might not be the best, it's still a team that you can cheer for other than say England, who is like the Toronto Maple Leafs of international soccer. So, and you know what, I'll say Manchester United is also the Toronto Maple Leafs of the Premier League. Like,
I will 1000% agree with you on that take. I always say England is so good on paper, but somehow find a way to F it up. Always. It blows my mind. And I
Yep.
always cheer for England because I'm like, this gotta be the year. This gotta be. And they always somehow like, crap the bed.
This summer, I thought
have
it was
such hot
the
takes. I'm careful with my hot takes. I'm not trying to get annihilated online. But Nick, I agree with you. Canada, let's hope we qualify. After qualifying, they have to play well against some pretty big countries. Like I'm thinking sometimes when they play Costa Rica, I'm like, okay, if they pass that square ball there against a Brazil or an Italy or a Netherlands or Portugal, hopefully they qualify.
Well, if they get there,
Hopefully they qualify. They would be in trouble. But these are all like, it's day by day. I think right now priorities for them to qualify and then they would prepare for the bigger teams. And obviously, depending on the opponent, have a different style of play. But I'm really, really excited because I think that they're going to qualify. And I think it's going to make some noise here in Canada.
they're undefeated still in qualifying. It's crazy.
I know. And I mean, think about it. Like, you can't tell me that 48,000 people here have followed Canada's journey for the
Never. Like I went to, so I've been a Canada soccer fan for a while. I'm half Portuguese. So growing up, it was a lot of watching Portugal soccer games during Euros, World Cup, whatever, at my Vavoo's house. And so as I got older, starting to get into Canada soccer and stuff. So when I first came to Toronto, because I'm not originally from here, for school, it coincided with the beginning of the Nations League. And so the first couple of games that they had there, they still had to qualify for the Nations League, which is kind of crazy to think about. But like the first game I went to was against Dominica, and BMO didn't even have the upper level open. It was lower level only. And it was like 8,000 or 9,000 people were there, like if that. And you look now, in the last game that they had in Toronto was like 25,000, and they had extra seating and stuff. And so just the difference in like the 3.5-4 years that it's been is crazy.
It's crazy. And like the cool thing about soccer is again, 48,000 people showed up to support Canada.
Yep.
And Alphonso Davies here in Edmonton. So just imagine when Canada starts playing well, how much people will start to get behind the team, behind the sport.
Oh,
and
yeah.
More will show up. I think that it's just crazy to even think that many people showed up with maybe not even appreciating, not appreciating, but not being diehard soccer fans or diehard Canada soccer.
Yeah, being like their first game. Yep.
Yes.
I do want to say as well, like, it's nice to see, like, I remember when I was younger, like, people would say, like, if you're ever good enough, like, you would not like maybe 5 or 10 years ago, soccer was never that big. So like if you wanted to really make it in the sport, you'd have to go to England, you'd have to go somewhere else. And I know some players might switch citizenships because they would know that Canada is not good.
Yep.
And just to see, like, I don't know if I'm going to get his name right, but wasn't it like
Ike Ugbo?
Yes.
Yep.
Like just to see like players, I don't really know much about him, but I'm something about him just coming back to Canada and using that citizenship. It's nice to see, and it's nice to have players, rather than wanting to play here, going to play in a country that could make the Olympics. And now everyone's coming together and they're making it possible.
Oh my gosh, can we just make this a soccer podcast?
I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
That's such a good point, Nick. And we have so much talent here in Canada. First of all, Canada, think about all the immigrants. I'm a daughter of immigrant parents, right? Like let's say I played professional soccer, which was the goal before my knee injuries. I could have gone and played for Poland, right? Like let's say Poland was the stellar country in women's soccer. I could have gone and played there instead of Canada. But now, all these players are wanting to stay here, wanting to develop here. TFC has established themselves as a really good Major League Soccer team. Get in with the TFC Academy. I hope that women's soccer continues to grow here. Obviously, in Canada, I'd love for there to be a TFC women's team, but it's starting to grow. It's starting to develop. It's starting to get a little bit more respect. And if players decide to stay here and take a chance on Canada, this is, I think what people may miss the boat on is that this is such a massive deal for like the younger generations, because they're going to see Alphonso Davies on the field and be like, oh my God, that could be me for Team Canada. And also, if I want to go and play in Europe, I could go win Champions League with Bayern Munich, which I think is just so cool. I think that this could be the start of something really big here in Canada, which I think the diehard soccer fans, which I know in Canada is few and far between, but I think that it would really, really take off here, and it would mean a lot to all of us. I'm speaking for all the crazy soccer fans.
And that's very okay. And like the game against Mexico tomorrow can be another big step in that. Like if they get another big result, that's that's currently a top 10 country in the world in soccer. And so Canada's continuously been on the climb. They're, I think, 44th now after the win against Costa Rica. And like, it's crazy.
Fingers crossed.
All right, Scott, I'm sorry. We've completely gone to soccer land. Is there anything you want to say? If not, I promise we'll go straight to Leafs.
Well, like, yeah, I don't follow soccer like
Totally okay.
super closely, but like I might now for me, I don't even really have like a very specific like background culturally. Like I think between like my 4 grandparents, they all come from different countries. So like it's not even like I have like diehard roots like you guys have with England, Poland, and Portugal. So it'll be nice to have Canada there, I guess, and maybe that'll provide a bit more interest for me.
But that's also a really good point too that I didn't think about. Like that's also a really good. Okay, sorry, continue.
No. That's mostly my point.
Okay, well that's great. Next week, I'm sorry guys. I promise I won't bring up. Actually, no, that's a lie.
No, we're definitely going to.
I'll definitely bring up soccer because we'll have Canada, Mexico to talk about.
Yeah.
So if you guys don't like soccer, just fast forward through.
Just generally skip to like the 15-minute mark if you want to skip the soccer stuff at the beginning of every show from now on.
Sorry, not sorry, but this is good
exactly.
time. Seriously. Oh my God, can we pitch a soccer podcast? Is that possible?
I mean,
only if we can also do
out.
a Formula One podcast.
Hey, we're talking my language right here.
Listen, if you guys want to meet twice a week, once for the Leafs, once for Formula One, I'm 1,000. I just watched the Michael Schumacher documentary.
Nice.
I'm surprised it took me this long, but Mike and I sat down and we watched it yesterday, and I was just like, for an hour and a half, just sitting there. And I obviously knew the story, but it's just, you see the scenes from like the behind the scenes, and you see real footage, and you see what kind of guy he was, and then the way it ends and everything. I'm just sold on Formula One.
Yeah. Another great one, if you like that kind of stuff, is Senna, who is like the Schumacher before Schumacher. That one's insanely good. So
Okay, I'm going to watch all of it. And
I think it's on Amazon Prime now, but basically it's the same kind of concept, except instead of interviews and stuff, it's all just footage from the time telling the story. And it's really good. It's another really, really sad ending because that's usually how it goes for race car drivers, but
you saw how, you saw the car crash in the Schumacher.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And so
brutal. Just absolutely terrifying. Also, Lewis Hamilton's an absolute.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
He's all right, eh? Just,
he's a casual 101 career wins, but
Okay, yeah, let's pitch a Formula One podcast.
Exactly.
All right, in Leafs land, week 5 of the NHL, the Leafs lost to the Kings 5-1. Fans obviously weren't happy about that one, but then won 3-0 against the Flyers, won 2-1 in overtime against the Flames, a Flames team that has been doing really well with Mangiapane, won 5-4 against the Sabres. Now, although that was a win, Leafs fans were unhappy. There's always something that we can find to be unhappy about. They were not happy that the Sabres found a way to score 4 goals against that game. Do we focus more on the fact that we won 3 out of 4 hockey games in week 5 against opponents that are really good, and we did have moments of, I'd say, really, really good hockey? Or should fans focus on the fact that we let in 4 goals against the Sabres?
What would Sheldon Keefe do?
Change the lines back to what they were.
Exactly. Sheldon Keefe would not be happy, and I'm not happy because they need to freaking fix what the hell they're doing. If they're facing Buffalo with an empty crowd, Buffalo's been doing pretty good. So, I can't really say anything that bad and how they're bad. But, like, the Leafs just need the dummy teams. Like, they're so much better than some of these teams, and they're just walking into the building. Sometimes they might not start on time. Sometimes they might have a lead, then they lose it. Sometimes they'll score a goal, and then the other team will score a goal back. They need to figure out how to demolish a team. Like, one of the things that they lack is killer instinct, and they still lack it. Like, I don't think they've found anything near that. And, like, there's players like Austin Matthews who will come into an overtime and 50-75% chance he's the one scoring to win the game at most times. It's either him or Nylander, but like they need to find a way to show how much better they are as a team versus other teams. And I haven't seen that yet. And maybe they're not as good as I think they are, but I as much as I am happy about them having wins, they also, I think, need to find themselves and find out what kind of team they are and what kind of team they want to be. Because, I mean, once the playoffs hit, it's got to be something. And I'm just hoping it's something past the first round.
Yeah, this week was kind of the most Leafs week possible when you look at the way that each game went. The first game against the Kings, they played pretty well when you look at some of the underlying numbers, but the score is 5-1. So could have got a little bit of better goaltending in that one. The second game against the Flyers, which is an all-around really strong performance, get the shutout, all that kind of stuff, a really strong bounce-back performance. The game against the Flames is that kind of playoff-style win that you really look for, where it's a tough game against a really tough opponent. You get to the overtime and you win it. And then the game against the Sabres is, again, Leaf stuff, where it's a game they should win handedly. The other team stays in it throughout, and they kind of squeak through a victory. So each game kind of felt like its own Leafs game in its own right and how it went. But clearly the coaching staff isn't content with something in there, or maybe they're just looking to continue to experiment after Saturday's lineup. But there were some bright spots, specifically the Flyers game and the Flames game were really, really strong. But coming out of Saturday night with that performance, especially when you have a rookie goaltender in for his very first game and you have that kind of performance, it maybe leaves a bit of a sour taste in your mouth.
Did the Sabres play on the Friday night as well, or was it just the Leafs that were playing?
Let me double check, but I don't think they did. Let's see. Oh, they did. They played played the Oilers. There you go.
Never mind then. All right. I was going to say we can give them some of the benefit of the doubt because the back-to-back, but other team had the back-to-back. So
and the Oilers lost, and that's when the Sabres snapped their 5-game losing streak against the
right.
So the Leafs are better than the Oilers confirmed.
Well,
the lines.
the Leafs did get to play against Arundel, which I love his mask. I love the Slipknot mask, I got to say, but not sure if he's an NHL goaltender anymore.
That's the best name of any goaltender. Sorry. I was going to say that's the best name of any goaltender. Arundel. Does anyone know why?
No.
None of you know why? Arundel, do you know why, Caroline?
No.
Frozen.
Honestly, God,
I've never seen it.
You've never seen Frozen? Their city.
I watched it once.
The city that they live in is called Arundel.
Nick, everything you said about Connor McDavid's goal, I don't even care that you said it, because the fact that you just referenced Frozen in our podcast in relation to hockey makes you.
When did it come out? Like,
my favorite.
How old is this reference?
Bro, it's just his name. Arundel is like the city.
Okay. I thought you were going to make a Joseph Woll thing because his last name is almost Wall.
No, I mean,
okay,
that's cool too. There's some weird names out there. Like I think I saw a guy yesterday or this morning. Oh, it was this morning. He got called up to an NHL team from the AHL, and his last name was Pylon.
I love that. That last name all day long.
I think the funniest NHL name I've seen. So, well, not funny, but just funny considering pop culture.
We're right back off the rails, but
there's a goalie in the Oilers system whose name is Olivier Rodriguez.
That's good.
I love.
It's like without the S or something, but like, yeah.
I just absolutely love that. We talked about Frozen on this podcast. Now I don't remember. I watched a long time ago with my nieces, but now I feel like I want to watch again so I can understand your reference and not disappoint you next time, Nick.
Out of all the movies, none of you have seen Frozen.
You look legitimately heartbroken.
I'm amazed. I'm very maybe it's just because my girlfriend likes Frozen, and that's probably why I watched it.
You love Frozen. You just
you know what?
I'm gonna play it off now.
Yeah.
I like the musicals. I like musical movies, especially like Moana is good. Pitch. Yes.
It's one of my favorite movies.
My girlfriend also likes those. I mean, Moana, Coco, The Greatest Showman, one of the best movies of all time. And you guys haven't watched Frozen.
I haven't seen any of them.
I was going to say, I haven't seen any of those.
I'm
logging
actually
off.
seen a good hand of those. I watched I watched both Frozen movies last year. I just only watched them once because I know I'm probably going to watch it a million times when I have kids.
Fair enough.
It's so true. It's so true. Okay, question for you guys. So, Nick, you alluded to the fact that yes, the Leafs got the job done against the Sabres, but they didn't play well. Would you rather them play well, like really well, and somehow lose that game, but still have a lot to go off of, or find a way to grind it out and win? Because for me, at the end of the day, a win is a win. Was it pretty? No. Do they have a lot of things to improve on? Yes. Should fans be happy? They never really are. So at the end of the day, if you beat the Sabres, not the prettiest, but move on, take the W and go on to the next game.
No, I will. Like it's great when they win, especially like games against Calgary when it's like it's kind of like boring at times, and then like it's just like an Austin Matthews goal happens in overtime. Like it's good because for one, it makes everyone happy, and a lot of people might be like, "Hey, like what the hell? Like the Leafs played so bad, but they still won." At the end of the day, this is going to count when playoff time comes, and I know that sometimes it might not be the best win, but at times it's also about grinding it out. Like you said, it's like that also shows the type of team they are to come back. It's just I don't want them to keep having games where they have this gigantic lead and then they lose it, and then they won in overtime. Like that's still great. It's just like that lead was lost.
Yep.
But I'm happy that they win. If they could win every single game, and even though it might have been a bad game, they still win them, I'm good with it. I just like to act like Sheldon Keefe sometimes.
As you should, Freddie Anderson.
Yeah. I'm going to log off.
I will say, I think it depends on, I guess, like the context as far as like how we should take in wins like this. Cause like, if it's just a one-off, which in the case of this week it was, then it shows that like they can scrap out wins like that. But at the same time, we have also seen them have games like this against poor teams before where they kind of slack off but manage to pull out the win last minute. And if that's just a problem that keeps happening, then that's kind of where it's like, okay, the wins are masking the actual problem, and this might be a bigger issue come playoff time where that might come back to bite us in the ass.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Right.
that's exactly it though. Like if it becomes a theme and multiple games are like that, then it's a concern. But I think they're still like top 5 in expected goals for percentage this year. Like over the course of the season, it's been fine. The beginning of the season, they were getting the results, but then losing the games against Buffalo was the opposite. So as long as it doesn't be trend in like the next couple of weeks, then I think we're perfectly fine.
Awesome. All right, guys. Joseph Woll, first NHL career game the other night. He had 23 saves on the night. Of course, such a super exciting and memorable moment for him. If you guys watched the post-game interview, he was so happy. He was emotional. You could tell how much that meant to him, especially with this Leafs team, which he called a special team. What do you guys think of him? He's 23 years old. Do we love him? Thoughts on his performance, even though, he did let in 4 goals against the Sabres?
Nick, you should probably lead this one off, huh?
Yeah, I'll say that. I mean, having the chance to interview him, watching him sort of have he didn't start the season on time. He had his injuries, and just being able to see that he's gotten to the NHL, and although it might not be like a full-time gig or a backup gig because of what's happened to Peter Mrazek, it's still nice to see the human aspect behind it. Just to see the press conference after and how happy he was. I mean, it's everything you want to see, and it's just nice that I was able to cover him and sort of see him go to the NHL for that game. And whether or not he get another game this season, I'm not sure, but just it's so nice to see. I don't have any bad things to say about him. I've interviewed him once or twice. One of the nicest guys on the Marlies team. They're all nice, but just all happiness for me.
There's
sorry,
a question.
go ahead.
No. There's a question here from Twitter. Maybe we can answer this one. And this is from Bill Feeney. If Woll can play during the time Mrazek is out, do you start entertaining offers for Mrazek?
Not yet. You signed Mrazek for a reason. He's a backup plan, not only for this season, but also into the future, depending on what happens with Jack Campbell here. Mm-hmm. The injury stuff has been unfortunate with Mrazek, but they brought him in because he's historically been a very, very solid 1A, 1B goaltender over his entire time with Carolina, even with Detroit to a certain extent. He was in that kind of tandem situation in net and has consistently put up good results there. So even if Woll does start to perform well in a backup role or something like that while Mrazek's out, for one, I don't think there'll be enough games for him to get into to kind of put that scenario out there. But I think it's just a little bit too early to kind of entertain that when you brought in Mrazek for a specific reason there.
And Woll's only played one game so far. And while he wasn't bad in that game, I wouldn't say that's also like convinced me that he's going to be like a consistent backup option for the Leafs. Again, not to say that he can't develop into that, but like I'd like to see more before I make that kind of a decision and gamble on getting rid of Mrazek, which again, that's an even bigger gamble because then you're just gambling on re-signing Jack Campbell, and we don't know how much he's going to get with the way he's been playing so far this year.
I'll say that it's an interesting one. I don't know. Like
I think that would be an off-season thing if it were to happen.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, though, like if the injuries start, if he has one more injury, I think it's really time to like stress out about it a little bit more. Like I'm kind of already thinking about whether or not the Leafs should maybe move on from him, just because it's a lot. Like it's not a lot of money, but it's also not a little amount of money that they're paying him, and like it's going to be hard, especially with Marley's. Like if Joseph Woll continues to play good in the AHL, Eric Shalgren is putting up great numbers in the AHL as well. And like Sheldon Keefe said the other day, the Leafs have those three guys and also Hutchinson who they think are capable of playing in the NHL. So if they are that high on them, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they ever thought about moving Mrazek. But like Kyle said, it's something that should wait, and even the human aspect of it as well. I mean, it sucks to see Peter Mrazek go through something like that, especially with just knowing people that have had injuries. It's tough.
Yep.
And hopefully he doesn't need to get traded. Hopefully we don't need to have a conversation like this again, just because I want the best for everyone.
Oh,
and that's really it.
Well said, Nick. All right, we'll end that conversation there because that was heartfelt. All right, William freaking Nylander. Oh my goodness. Week 5 of the NHL, 2 goals, 3 assists, obviously in 4 games. Overall, 7 goals, 8 assists on the season so far in 16 games. Last week on the pod, we talked about how he has haters, how people maybe don't appreciate Nylander like they should in Toronto. But let's talk about this week, what makes him such an integral part of this Leafs roster, because in my opinion, he's the Leafs' best player, most consistent player, and someone who's been going since last season in the playoffs. Like this guy is just on fire. And like we said last week, he doesn't get the love he deserves necessarily.
Yeah, he's been unreal to start this season. Everyone saw the playoff performance. He stepped up when they needed him to, and wondered if that would carry over into the season, and it absolutely has. He got the promotion to the first line. We'll see if that continues this week or what happens there. But he's been great. He's been getting pucks on net. He's actually second in the NHL in shots on goal, which is kind of crazy to think about. When he's put right in between Alex Ovechkin and Connor McDavid in terms of shots on goal. And he's been scoring clutch goals as well. When it's overtime, when it's late in games, he's just been all over the ice. And so his value to the team beforehand, I thought, was more as like the second line scorer, somebody that can get in the zone with a really good rate and be able to generate offense consistently. But since the playoffs and into the season, it just feels like everything about his game has just taken that next step to another level.
One thing I'll say is that at one point I want to say Sheldon Keefe's doing a great job. At some points I got to question him. Like today at practice, he's on the second line.
Yeah.
Like what are we doing? Like it's working. Keep it like that. Like I don't understand. Like some of the things I just don't understand. Like I get if Timothy Liljegren wants or needs a game off, or they're balancing their defense and trying to try things. But if William Nylander is working with Austin Matthews and they're doing so well together, and Mitch Marner is doing pretty decently with John Tavares and Alexander Kerfoot, I mean,
Just
why
leave
don't you
it.
keep it like that? Leave it. And then we got Nick Ritchie going up to the first line. And as much as he's playing a great game, I will say it's a nice opportunity for him. But for Nylander, like it's just like he does a good job, and he's doing such a good job, and he'll probably do just as good with Tavares. But it's just like that thing is working. Why are we changing it? And for Nylander, I'll say that he's having a hell of a season. I personally did not expect him to play like this. He's blowing his contract out of the water. And if there is at one point this year still people who have bad things to say about him, you're wrong. You're wrong.
Love it.
All wrong.
I actually don't mind switching him around in the top six because I'd honestly prefer that the players get opportunities to play with like all of them, except for maybe Matthews and Tavares because they're centers. Although Nylander can also play center too because, you know, he's perfect and can do everything. But I think and also like one thing I wanted to add with what Kyle had said about him being second in shots. I think the more impressive thing with him being second in shots is that he's been playing with Austin Matthews, who you think would be getting the shots on that line too. Like he's just very flexible, I guess. Like he can be the playmaker on the line. He can be the goal scorer. He's not the best on the team at either of them, obviously, but he can still do both of those very well. It's what makes him a threat on like the half wall in the power play when they've had him there. And just like he's really good, like his zone entries, he's probably one of the best on the team at doing that, actually getting the Leafs into the zone. And he's stepped up his game the last couple of years defensively as well. And he's just been a very consistent, like he's able to drive his own line now, as we saw. Because like even last year, Tavares started to take like a slight step back as far as his ability to drive play, and Nylander just kind of took the load off of him and took over for him. And I think we saw that when Tavares got hurt in the playoffs and it didn't stop Nylander.
Versatile. I feel like he's very versatile, which is a unique skill set in any sport for a player to have. Nick, I believe you mentioned Nick Ritchie. Can't help to notice fans not being impressed with him every time the Leafs play. He has 2 assists in 16 games. I remember when obviously, you know, in preseason when Richie his name started coming up, everyone's like, okay, we like this guy. We got to be patient. But at what point do fans have the right to stop being patient and expect more from him? And hopefully, you know, this doesn't happen, but at what point do fans actually write Nick Ritchie off?
From Sheldon Keefe, now is the time.
Something, you know, something's got to give, right?
I think he's been playing a lot better. And I hope for him it comes, because a lot of people said like, oh, he's coming in and he's going to be Zach Hyman, but he's not as good as Zach Hyman. And like, I thought Michael Bunting would be the Zach Hyman of the team, not Nick Ritchie. But in terms of Ritchie, like at some points he just looked disengaged. He looked like he was just playing and he didn't know what was going on. And I'll say that again, he started becoming more involved with the game, and the more he's involved, the better he does. And I think that it's good in one part to see him go up to that top line, because if he's doing good right now and he is getting involved, he's only going to get more involved, and we could see a lot more. And hopefully that happens. But with the way he was playing in the first, 5-10 games of the season, it just wasn't good enough.
I think
he's he's looked best when he's been on the fourth line. And unfortunately, when you're paying $2.5 million for a winger like that, you can't really afford his best game to be when he's on the fourth line. So they had him on the fourth line. He looked a little bit better. It looked like him being alongside somebody like Wayne Simmons helped out kind of his overall game and got him more engaged, stuff like that. But you got to put him back higher up in the lineup and see if it's going to work at some point, because you can't have $2.5 million on the fourth line the way that this team's constructed.
Yeah, like Nick mentioned that he didn't look too good in his first 5 to 10 games, and that was about when the time that he was on the top line. Yeah. And it just looked out of place on a line filled with skilled players, because that's not really Nick Ritchie's game. It's sometimes there, but he's more of the physical kind of guy. Yeah. And I think the other big reason why a lot of fans have been kind of against him this season is because of his ability to take a lot of penalties. And that's also something that's kind of been a known factor about his game for quite a few years now. So I think, at least for me, I'm not really surprised when he takes penalties like that. So that kind of softens the negative impact for me, because it's like, oh, well, it's Nick Ritchie. I expected that. But yeah, I think
like the helmet thing.
yeah, stuff like that. So I think just hopefully I don't mind moving him around, giving him opportunities to see what clicks. But if it ends up being that he's just in a fourth line role, unfortunately, that's not the best contractually. So that may mean that we have to move on from him. But if that's where he succeeds and the team does well with him succeeding in that role, then I wouldn't be opposed to that either. I will say there is probably one Leafs fan that has no problem with Nick Ritchie's game. The reason why we don't know that is because he's screaming into the void of his own podcast and not on Coach's Corner anymore.
Yes.
Fair enough.
So is it safe to say for all of us, we're going to still remain a little patient, but if this continues as time goes on, unfortunately, I don't want to use the term write-off, but maybe we move on from Nick Ritchie.
Yeah, it's just, especially as you get closer and closer to the trade deadline and you don't have a ton of space to work with, depending on how much space they can accrue over the coming months, depending on how much injured reserve space and stuff that they've ended up using. I could definitely see him being somebody that gets shipped out in a trade near the deadline to create some space, because unless he can solidify that top 6 or even top 9 spot, but I don't even see him really as a fit on the third line the way that they currently have it constructed. It seems like it's top 6 or bust for him. And so far it hasn't really worked. We saw a nice pass from him on the power play a couple of games ago, but you need to have that more consistently at 5-on-5, and we haven't seen it yet.
And even if we don't move on from him in a trade, replacing him in that trade, the Leafs also have a fair amount of solid depth forwards that could potentially take one of his spots. Nick Richardson, Nick Robertson, and Josh Ho-Sang could probably use those opportunities later on in the season as well. I'm drawing a blank at other options, but I know going into the season, it was always who are we going to put where? Because there's just so many options. Yeah. So if he can't play well in a bigger role and we have a cheaper option then it probably is the best idea to move on.
Absolutely.
He needs to show who he is. So I don't remember if it was Kyle or Scott, but he's a big physical guy. He's not showing his physicality. At times you'll see it, but he's not you'd see teams in the playoffs like Boston and who are not afraid to throw their body around. And it just seems like we've seen Nick Ritchie do it on other teams, but at times it just doesn't look like he wants to throw that body around anymore.
What do you think that comes down to? Confidence?
But even then, he didn't really do it much at the start of the season. He hasn't really done a lot of it. And maybe it's the Leafs being hey, we're not that sort of team. But isn't that why they got him here, was to be one of those physical players like Wayne Simmons Like Wayne Simmons is a guy, he's thrown his body around a lot. And with the how big Nick Ritchie is, and he could come at you like a freaking freight train.
And we all know that Leafs fans love those moments. Like if I'm Nick Ritchie, I'm using my strength in my body and my size and my physicality to get Leafs fans behind me every single chance I can get, because Leafs fans, we loved it in Kadri, not in the playoffs, but we loved it in Kadri. we exactly. We love when Wayne Simmons drops the gloves. We love those like tough moments. And again, that's a great point, Nick. Like it's odd why he's not showcasing that or using that to his advantage as often as he should. But I wonder what that comes down to for him.
Yeah, it's not even just like hitting people and stuff. He doesn't even use his body as much as I thought he would on like the forecheck and stuff. Mm-hmm. So even in like circumstances like that, when you're on a top six line and you're the complementary piece and you're supposed to be that hard forechecker and all those kind of things, he's not even necessarily doing that as much. So I didn't love the signing from the get-go. I thought it was a bit of a weird fit, especially when you think about the team that the Boston Bruins are, and they let this guy go for free. They didn't qualify him in the summer, and that's why he was a free agent. So it was a weird fit, and we've kind of seen it play out that way. But they're going to get that. You've got lots of regular season games to see what works and what doesn't. He's going to get another stretch of games here by the looks of things up in that higher role. And it feels like it's going to be one of those last opportunities for him to really kind of take that role and run with it, especially with some of the other options that are around this team.
I could see it being just like a confidence issue. Like, we've seen, Leafs fans are a rabid pack of animals that can feed on any player when they're not doing well. Like we saw with Marner earlier in the year. And also he's a good old Ontario boy. I'm mentioning Don Cherry too much. Happy anniversary to his firing. Playing for the Leafs, it's probably a lot of pressure that comes from that when you come from the area as well. So it could just be him getting used to that. And maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. We've seen a lot of players play poorly in Toronto and flourish in other places because they're not dealing with the pressure of playing in Toronto. So maybe that's it as well.
Speaking of that, Michael Bunting, I think he was the Leafs, like some Leafs fans' next quote unquote victim, because he was on a 6-game goal drought, which he ended against the Sabres, a massive goal for Michael Bunting. Of course, Nick, you alluded to it. He was supposed to be the new Zach Hyman, which you can't deny. This guy plays with a lot of passion, a lot of heart, very, very hardworking. We've seen very bright moments from the guy. But yes, he went on a little bit of a drought, and Leafs fans weren't happy about it. Of course, there's a lot of tweets being like, quote unquote, rookie of the year. And like, obviously, saying that he's not. What do we think of his performance? Do we think that he was the guy to fill Zach Hyman's shoes, who's doing exceptionally well in Edmonton here? And I think Zach Hyman, if anything, I think everyone knew his worth in Toronto, but I think he's really proving it here in Edmonton.
He's like the closest thing that you could find is like a cheap option to replace the kind of stuff that you can get for Zach Hyman. I actually prefer Bunting on the fourth line with the Jason Spezza, given his net front abilities and Jason Spezza's ability to get slot passes through, which at least at some point last week, he was still top 5 in the NHL and getting slot passes, but just Nick Ritchie and Wayne Simmons and everybody else on the fourth line haven't been able to convert them. So I do like Bunting in that spot, but the question is, who then goes up in the top 6 if he's not? And so if Nick Ritchie can grab a top 6 spot, maybe you bump up at Andre Kasha, who I'd like to see get some more time up in that top 6. Maybe something like that could work. But for Bunting, it was good for him to go back down to the fourth line, play a few less minutes, not necessarily against those top competition, get that goal back, and maybe get some of that confidence back. Because early in the season, he was clicking. It was going really well. Everybody's going to have that drought at some point, but for Bunting, it's the first time he's had that in the NHL. When you look at his time with Arizona and having the sky high shooting percentage, then having a nice start to the season here, it was going to be what kind of happens when he does hit that rough patch. Does it just kind of dry up entirely and he never really gets it back, which we see for a lot of AHL players who come up at an older age? They have a nice start, they hit that first rough patch, and then they never find it again. But it looks like he's finding his game again. He's been playing well and getting chances consistently. So it's nice to see him get that goal back again, and hopefully it blossoms into something again where he can get back inside the top six and be that complementary piece that he was earlier this year.
Yeah, if I'm going off of like I'm trying to make my dream lineup and I'm picking like the best player I think could be suitable for like a top six role, I would probably go with Kosh over Bunting, because I just like him a bit more as a player, and he's shown in the past that he's a top six player before all the injuries. So like there could be something there. But I also I never really had a problem with Bunting in that role either. Like even during the drought, I honestly didn't even know he was in a drought because it just didn't really look like that in his play. And that Bunting, Matthews, Nylander line is also like one of the top lines in the league as far as like driving expected goals. Just like it was, the line was doing well, so I don't mind him in that role, especially because then that lets Kosh play with Kampf and Engvall, and that I thought that line's been a really good shutdown line so far this year. But at the same time, I don't mind experimenting with trying different players with the top six so that we can see what works best by the time the playoffs come around.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll say just quick, I haven't really seen anything I haven't liked from Michael Bunting. Like there was that drought, but at the same time, like Kyle said, he still is getting those chances. And I hope to God he turns this thing around and pulls out how he did in Arizona. But I mean, he plays with heart, he plays with passion. He's from here, he wants to be here. Nick Ritchie's also from here. I don't know if he wants to be here. By his play, I don't know. But, you don't get a lot, like, as much as you see players who play with a lot of heart and passion, in terms of a player like Zach Hyman, they share sort of that similar, not even just the play style, they show that similar passion.
Yep.
And it's really nice to see, and I hope for the best for him, because if he's playing like that now and he's playing with a lot of passion when the playoffs roll around and he's really going, like we saw it with Kadri until he would maybe get a little bit out of hand, but that passion was still there. It was in the right place. It just didn't come out in the right place. I think the same for Bunting, not in terms of him getting a penalty or whatever of what Kadri did, but the passion is there. And when that passion is there, like these players can turn into different players, like really good. So I'm excited. I hope he turns it around, and I hope he has a great rest of the season.
Just quickly on the penalty thing, though, he has taken a couple of maybe silly penalties or just penalties that you shouldn't take recently. So it is something where he's been almost trying a bit too hard at times and taking those penalties where that's kind of dipped. So just being cognizant of that and knowing that if you take those penalties and you're a guy who's making $900K and you can easily go down to the fourth line and you've got a lot of other options, like Kirill Semyonov has looked pretty good in the couple games he's got in, can't be taking those kind of penalties and putting your team on the penalty kill as well, which kind of goes for Richie as well.
Yeah, no, all solid points. We spoke about this earlier on in the season, but you need to have someone on your team. You need to have core players on the team with heart. And I agree. I think, Kyle, the way you put it is actually very true. He's like, not in a disrespectful way, but he's like a cheaper version of Zach Hyman.
No, and that's exactly what it is, right? Like Zach Hyman has done what he's done for multiple years, and so he deserves that contract. Michael Bunting had done it for a 20-game stretch with the Arizona Coyotes in meaningless games at the end of the year. So like there's a lot more to prove. And he's done well in the limited sample that he's had here in Toronto as well. But he's not the same play driver that Zach Hyman is. I think Zach Hyman doesn't get the credit that he deserves for being a play driver and stuff like that. The finishing ability is maybe better in net front and stuff like that. But what you've got to look for is the next version of these players that you let go. You can't keep all the core players or complementary pieces that you want, because you're going to end up capping yourself out when you start spending $5 million on your complementary pieces. You have to spend the $2 to $3 million or less on those, like you were with Zach Hyman previously, spending $2.25 million on him, spending $900K on Michael Bunting. You have to find the next version of these guys, and that's hopefully what the Leafs have found here with Bunting. He's still going to be on the fourth line for the next couple games by the looks of things, by practice lines. But again, I like him in that fourth line role. I like him when he's a little bit higher in the lineup. He's a nice value player for $900K, and hopefully that goal on Saturday turns things around a bit.
Kyle Cushman, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap on that because that was perfectly said. Thank you. This was I think we're a little over an hour, which is awesome. It was all our soccer talk or Formula One chat.
Yeah.
Let us know what goes down in your books as the best goal ever to be scored in the NHL. I thought that was a great question.
Rick Nash, I'm telling you.
Nick Barton, at the beginning of the conversation, let us know your thoughts on Canada soccer, everything going on in Leafs land. We'll be back next Monday. Of course, this has been fun, guys. We just need to keep having this fun. Hopefully the Leafs keep doing their thing. Canada soccer gets a big dub against Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have a lot to chat about next week. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we sign off?
I got nothing.
Maybe just a quick shout out to Alex Kerfoot, who's gotten a lot of hate early this season for various different reasons, expansion, draft, cap hit, all these kind of things. Quietly had a nice couple of games the past week, so shout out to him.
Go Alexander Kerfoot.
Thanks for listening to TLN Radio, a member of the Nation Network of Podcasts and delivered by DoorDash. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and never miss an episode.